Adam Dudley, from Adam Dudley Architects, has over 30 years experience in projects involving new build, conservation, alterations, and new uses for historic buildings. Adam graduated from Heriot-Watt University in 1980 and started his career as a community architect with Wester Hales Community Enterprise. He then worked for John C. Hope Architects before establishing his own practice 25 years ago. Adam has lectured at the University of Edinburgh and has been an external marker for their MArch course for over 15 years. Adam gained his conservation accreditation at advanced level in 2009 and was made a fellow of the RIAS in 2011. So please join me in introducing and welcoming Adam Dudley. Thank you very much.
I suppose we could say that the UK, the heritage industry in the UK started 100 years ago when the first legislation was passed giving the government the authority to decide what was heritage and to take the responsibility for deciding which buildings should be saved and cared for. In marking this occasion on Radio 4 last week, Robert Harrison, who's the author of The Heritage Industry, commented that, to John Humphrey's surprise, that heritage is about the future and not about the past. He went on to say that what we do with our historic buildings depends very much on how we see ourselves and how we see our future. Now, this seems to me a reasonable proposition. And as architects, we might see ourselves as the custodians of our built heritage. But we should remember heritage is not a thing, it's an idea, or rather a set of ideas or values. And this needs to be understood if we are to take our part. As for the future, well, I'll come on to that, which is what we generally do with the future. So, first project, I hope this works, there we go. Lord Markham Upper Bow. So essentially what we're dealing with is the balance between the overarching heritage value, as we perceive it, against the primary project drivers. And if we take the Edinburgh World Heritage Site, there's some 4,500 listed buildings, another 1,500 or so historic buildings. And it could be argued that each of these possess some heritage value of some sort. And as practitioners, we have to distill from our appraisal of these buildings what these values might be, taking into account the history, the context, the architectural, cultural significance and so forth. By doing so, we hope to gain an understanding of what it is we're trying to protect. Alongside this, we have the client brief, we have a budget, we have technical and statutory constraints to contend with. So it is a balance. So, okay, this is Lawn Market Upper Bow. Okay, that's how we arrived. This is one of my early projects when I first set up. That was the state of the building. A great example of how not to go about repairing a building. I won't go into it. There's got all the usual problems of using cement render on top of defective stone, bad pointing, rather awful colour schemes. But in this instance, okay, is the building itself. So what we're trying to protect here is the artifact, the object, the building. The building has its significance. At the top of the Royal Mile, it replaced the old bow head, which marked the junction of the original West Bow with the Lawn Market. And this was a building, as it was, about 25 years of age, there for all its glory. And thankfully, the Old Town Renewal Trust recognised the building for what it was, and along with Edinburgh Council, agreed to fund a programme of repairs. Great opportunity to exercise proper conservation repair practice, all lovingly hand drawn. That was pencil and tracing paper, if I recall, in good old days. And as you can see, we've gone, remember the previous photograph, that's the building restored. And as is often the case, you can't, the first phase was the above the shop level. The Scottish shop, they're only interested in marketing their merchandise, but again with funding from the Old Town Renewal Trust, we managed to persuade the shop owner to change the colours. We put the oak shutters back, and we completed the building. So that was an example of heritage as artefact. Moving on. Okay, this is an example. Just go back before. This is Dean Village. Okay, downside Dean Village. Organic growth, sensitive organic growth. And in this, we took the view that what we were protecting was the village character. The building had undergone various changes, starting off as a two-storey dwelling with possibly a blacksmith's workshop alongside. Here it is in the late 19th century. By the time we got hold of it in 1995, another storey had been added. It had been a local shop. The old workshop was no longer in use. So that was how we found it. The brief was commercial viability. This was a building that actually didn't warrant demolition. It was listed in any event. It was constrained by statutory consents, and the developer, a design-led developer, Edinburgh developer called the Borough Company, wanted to obviously maximise the accommodation. So we set about just picking up on local characteristics, features, architectural features, the dormer windows. The workshop wasn't worthy of saving, so we demolished that and used a more modern palette of materials. And this is what we ended up with. What I would add in all these cases, God is in the details and less is more. That's inevitably what we found was the developer would cut corners, and instead of the concealed gutters, we had plans on aluminium gutters instead of the glass balustrading with a rather crude iron. But at the end of the day, this was the composition, and the building mass remains as it is, and we have an example here of continued and controlled organic growth. I'm doing time-wise, all right?
Thanks.
Okay, I'm going to speed up. So I'm cheating a little bit here because you can see the red dot is slightly out with the World Heritage site, but it's to demonstrate a point. So this was the heritage value here for us was the streetscape. Here we have the original building on the left. Obviously, when we came to it in 1994, the adjacent tenement had gone, so there's a gap site in between. This is the building repaired. In this case, the next slide will show how we looked at it, but we ultimately decided that actually it was the streetscape that was important. It was the richness of the building massing and the roof configuration, the scale. I mean, this one was referred to as the doll's house scale. It does look like almost 2/3 scale of the adjacent building. And the driver for this, the project driver, was very much to rescue the building, to restore the building, but also to modernise it. I mean, it was shot. I mean, the original, some of the original detailing's there, but the walls were bulging, the gabinet was leaning inwards, the first 2 floors were no longer lived in, and the owners were brought to the table, again with funding from Historic Scotland on this occasion, and realised they had to do something about the building. But sometimes you get it wrong and you have to explore these things, and this occasion, we died to use this, we thought, well, it's we'll treat it as a one-off building, it's not really part of a collection. We looked at doing this fancy curved roof, which was very much the vogue at the time. Yes, we can all fall victim of that. But actually, on reflection, and we also heard that actually the tenement next door would be reinstated and with the penned access. So it felt only proper that we should restore the original buildings. And fortunately, we were able to survey absolutely every part of it. All the stones that these are numbered stones. They came out and back in exactly the right position. The bottom, the whole facade was taken down and rebuilt. But it wasn't Disneyfication, as you called it. This was a genuine and faithful restoration of the original building. However, we also needed to modernise, so it gave us the opportunity to do something different internally, and the building's been a great success. Next one, the Royal College of Surgeons. Okay, this one's called Past Reflections. That's the heritage value, and I suppose what we're saying by that is it's what we're trying to protect there is the heritage value. Now, the reality is the building was no longer fit for purpose. It was past its use, so the college needed a new building to serve a new function. So it started with life, it's the Oceanographic Lab. You can see it at the top there, and it metamorphosed to the Edinburgh University Research Facilities with a barrel vaulted roof, felt roof. Very, very little of the original, some of the original stonework is left there. So we took the view that yes, this is a case for demolition and renewal. And we took some basic design decisions that we would, the facade of the old medical school, we would make sure that we weren't going to cover that up in any way. We wanted to make more, not only just retain the building presence, but improve, enhance it and its connection with the street. So we created this promenade, the courtyard. We elected to use robust materials. So it's granite, it's stone, it's phosphor bronze, it's stainless steel roof, and the massing was to sit comfortably next to Surgeons Hall. And obviously we've got the 1960s blocking the path. We also attempted to pick up on some of the local features. A chimney gabled wall. Obviously this is a rather, using a bit of artistic license of an interpretation of a wall head dormer. And here it is. So, there's a chimney gable, there's our version of it, obviously no chimneys. We've got the wallhead cabinets here, the dormers here, this is our interpretation of it. Issues of privacy, roof lighting, that sort of thing. So this is, the first image showed still Oceanographic Labs, very much looking as a ghost. Well, the ghost has reappeared as in another form, but the building's still there. And there we have 10 minutes left, thank you. Okay, so there's some details of the building unashamedly modern. This is the old North Canongate primary school, which is here and it's here. Now, the reality of this building, it did have some architectural significance. The architect himself had some significance. We had access to original drawings, but that's as it is now. Here's some of the architectural features. Certainly not worthy, in our opinion, of demolishing. And we were brought in to do a conservation study at that time, and I'll bring some hot off the press news up shortly. It was scheduled for demolition as part of the Carlton Gate scheme, and what was taking place was a new build 5-star hotel. But more importantly about this building, it was the cultural and the social value. It opened at the turn of the century. It looked after the educational and physical sustenance of the poor of the North Canongate. It had gone on to become a vegetable market, as a building skills college, and latterly as a Canongate venture, which was offices and workshops. So it's very much ingrained in the collective memory. And local community groups, the Old Town Development Trust, are behind and have been behind trying to save the building. And this is one of their newsletters. And lo and behold, it's funny, we had the developer phone us, or what a prospective developer, and the evening news last night, was it? Anyway, the bottom line is new developers come along, and they are no longer looking to demolish the building, and it is a case of extending and altering and upgrading, and the building is saved. So this is macro and micro imperatives of heritage value. Okay, there's a number of projects here. This is very much to do with the fact that we need to do something about the performance, the energy performance of these historic buildings. Most of the buildings within Old Town and New Town are constructed the same. It's mass masonry walls with linings of one form or another. It is slated pitch roofs, it's sash and case windows, it's dormers, roof lights, that sort of thing. And they're all particularly energy inefficient. So we have to do something about it. So the overarching heritage principle here for us is the building fabric. It is the features and it's the utility. Against that, so what we're trying to achieve with the programme is improving the fabric performance. It's occupant comfort, it is disruption, it's capital value, it's operational values or costs. So what we've been working on recently is a range of treatments for lightness of touch, to avoid any decanting, to minimise the disruption, to have no loss of original fabric. And this is one, we've done treatments for different elements we've been working for. So this is one where it is we're trying to combine complete thermal continuity, where we're treating the heat loss through the windows with bespoke secondary glazing. The way in which we do it allows us to insulate behind the shutter pockets, in this instance it's shutters, and we've got secondary glazing. So we lose none in existing fabric, everything still operates as it should. This is just showing some of the treatment, blown insulation, rigid insulation, hemp or wood fibre, and this is just showing briefly how everything operates. You'd be hard pressed to notice the difference from the inside or the outside. We're trying to avoid this sort of thing, which really does detract from the architecture, where you've got fenestration that doesn't really make any sense at all. And these are the sort of improvements that we're getting. And I have to say, we won the Low Carbon Building of the Year award last year, you know, on the basis of this. And just to illustrate this obviously this is it completed. These are this thermal imaging, and again this is a street, Northumberland Street. The building there has been treated, and as you can see here, you know, the difference is really quite marked. On that, just a word of caution: whatever we do, we're changing the dynamics of the building. You have to monitor that. You have to go back and visit it. You get it wrong sometimes. This is treatment that we've done that we're now revisiting. And that's just ongoing monitoring. So the future. Climate Change Act 2009 Scotland. A big challenge. You know, we've got to reduce carbon emissions by 40% by 2020, by 80% by 2080. At the current time, buildings take about 40% of the UK energy. In Scotland, 50% of the waste that goes to landfill is from construction and demolition. We need to take a good look at ourselves. And we need to think again about, when it comes to demolishing buildings, we need to consider the embodied energy. And, you know, case in fact, there's the developers for the Cangate venture having done that. So we need to invest, we need to find a way to make these buildings an Edinburgh World Heritage energy efficient up to prominent standards and truly sustainable. We need to invest in traditional building skills. We also need to embrace modern technologies. I know as conservation architects you assume that you do wear tweed suits and you don't work on computers, which I don't, and you don't have access to modern technology. You couldn't be further from the truth. And we have to collaborate with other, with other specialists, and we need to bring old buildings and how we treat old buildings in line with how we view modern buildings. And we do zero carbon modern buildings. Well, we should be looking to doing what we can with existing buildings. So the last few slides is just to show what's out there. This is laser scanning, and what this is able to do is produce a 3D model from a laser scan from a point cloud. And you create an incredibly accurate, model that you can work with. You can use it. I mean, there's a model there. There's a model created from a point cloud. And these are just positions where the scanners are. Now, that can be used to I mean, in here, if it was here, it could be used to establish whether a stone is delaminating or not without having to get scaffolding up, cherry pickers. I mean, ultimately, I'm not suggesting that we could, but the information that a laser scanner can get can be transferred digitally onto a computer, onto a lathe, to completely replicate, and we've now got 3D printers. So there are all these opportunities out there, and again, this is an example of modelling through point cloud and introducing other, CAD software. So I think that I would finish on. So the future, the future is bright. We've got fantastic, building stock in Edinburgh World Heritage. We do need to change the way in which we practice. How's that?
That's perfect.
Good.
Thanks, Dennis. Thank you.